sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid on a regular basis. It just happened to coincide.
Whoopi Goldberg, the long-reigning, self-appointed queen of daytime television, just had the meltdown of the century live on The View. And no, it surprisingly wasn't about her coffee being cold or a guest wearing the wrong shoes. This time, the architects of her on-air unraveling were none other than Bill Maher and Greg Gutfeld, who tag-teamed the unthinkable and roasted Whoopi so hard, even her Oscar reportedly felt secondhand embarrassment. What exactly did these two provocateurs say that sent The View's matriarch into emotional Defcon One? Buckle up, because this roast wasn't just savage, it was historic. And Whoopi's dignity might not have been the only thing that left the building that day.
It's so cute when one of their side gets punished. They sulk like they ran out of raw cookie dough in the green room. Yeah, ABC suspended Whoopi for 2 weeks because she said the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. She said this on a show called The View, which makes everything about race. Except now.
The Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
It's about a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
Yeah, that's heroically stupid.
It all started, as many View controversies do, with Whoopi making the fatal mistake of opening her mouth and unleashing a take so perplexing, so out of touch, it practically begged to be shredded by sharper minds. This wasn't her first foray into ludicrous statements. The View has been her personal platform for years, a place where hot takes ranging from mildly ridiculous to straight-up baffling are served daily. But this time, perhaps emboldened by the usual echo chamber of agreement, she waded into the treacherous waters of free speech, political correctness, and how people just need to get over themselves. It was a classic Whoopi lecture, drenched in her signature, "I'm above all this," liberal arrogance. But what she didn't anticipate was that this particular sermon would hand Bill Maher and Greg Gutfeld the perfect ammunition for a coordinated takedown.
Moral privilege, Whoopi hangs on, which is fine since she apologized, but not before digging an even deeper hole than the one in her head.
And finally, new rule, stop saying that Whoopi Goldberg getting yanked from The View right after she attacked me on The View is karma. There's no such thing as karma, sorry. Sorry, but life is random. The only word to describe it when a big game hunter gets trampled by an elephant and then eaten by lions is hilarious.
Enter Bill Maher, the HBO host, a man with a well-earned reputation for skewering hypocrisy on both sides of the aisle with deadpan snark, was never going to let Whoopi's pompous pronouncements slide. If there's one thing Maher loves more than his own smug sense of intellectual superiority, it's proving that even staunch liberals can be spectacularly wrong. Or worse, just plain dumb. The moment he caught wind of Whoopi's latest truth bomb, he sharpened his sarcasm and prepared to unleash the intellectual equivalent of a chainsaw. Maher wasn't interested in polite debate. He was there to dissect her arguments with the precision of a surgeon, exposing every flaw and contradiction, until all that was left was a pile of well-intentioned but ultimately hollow rhetoric. He's too busy crafting a brand of liberalism that comes with spicy hot takes and a healthy disdain for political correctness, virtue signaling.
Yesterday on The View, otherwise known as Hell's DMV, Whoopi Goldberg asked how much different are the values of the Trump administration from the Taliban.
We have a leader who has repeatedly demeaned women, wants to defund organizations that benefit women, calling on the media to shut up, specifically wants to give preferential treatment based on religion. Are these values really much different than the Taliban's?
Wow. Talk about groundbreaking to actually hear a celebrity say something mean about the Taliban. How dare they compare them to Trump? The Taliban should sue. Guess they ran out of Hitler analogies. So as they bash the president, I'm reminded how entertainers rarely express any rage over any strand of misogynist Islamism. If they did, we might take their rage toward Trump seriously. A reminder, the Taliban throw acid in girls' faces for going to school. Yeah, I guess that's like defunding Planned Parenthood.
Then, as if Maher's clinical dismantling wasn't enough, Greg Gutfeld joined the fray. If Maher is the intellectual heavyweight, Gutfeld is the comedic wrecking ball. The Fox News equivalent of the class clown, armed with sharp jabs, snarky one-liners, and an absolute lack of concern for anyone's easily bruised feelings. Gutfeld doesn't care if you're a saint or a sinner. If you step onto the public stage and deliver an absurd statement, you better believe he's ready to turn that statement into the butt of a nationwide joke. He took Whoopi's words, his eyes practically twinkling with comedic malice, and transformed her into a cartoon character of liberal excess. He didn't just disagree, he shredded her arguments with the gleeful energy of a man who knows he's about to go viral. The delivery was effortless, a masterclass in mocking without needing to shout, making Whoopi an easy, almost irresistible target.
Them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America. There is one view,
right, and that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think
the 1-2 punch was devastating. First, Maher, who has been a standard bearer for a certain brand of old-school liberalism for decades, calmly picked apart the substance, or lack thereof, of Whoopi's position. He highlighted the internal contradictions, the intellectual laziness, and the general out-of-touchness that often characterizes The View's approach to complex issues. He pointed out the irony of the show being called The View when it often seems to promote only one acceptable viewpoint, a sentiment that resonates with many critics who see the show as an echo chamber. He even waded into the karma debate, specifically addressing Whoopi's prior suspension over her controversial Holocaust comments. Maher, ever the pragmatist, dismissed the notion of karma, stating life is random, and sometimes awful things happen, offering obliquely hilarious to describe the irony of a big game hunter being trampled and eaten. This wasn't just disagreement, it was a philosophical dismantling.
And by the way, out there, that hat that you keep wearing, that red hat that says Make America Great Again, that tells people that you go along with this. So you might as well just put a swastika on the hat.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because we see it anyway.
I'm not going to defend Donald Trump ever, but I would never say that we should put the swastika on the cap, because I think you can hate Donald Trump. You can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country. I don't want to live in that country. I don't want to live in the country where I hate half the country, and I don't hate half the country.
How dare you disagree?
Then Gutfeld, with his signature smirk, came in for the comedic kill shot. He didn't bother with nuanced arguments. He went straight for ridicule, turning Whoopi's earnest pronouncements into punchlines. He likely mocked the show's predictable outrage, the hosts' tendency to sulk like they ran out of raw cookie dough in the green room when one of their side gets punished for saying something controversial. He leaned into the perception of The View hosts as dingbats, whose brains are small, with Sunny Hostin perhaps mastering the art of making idiots look smart. The attack was relentless, turning The View's entire premise into a running gag. His point about the sausage maker Johnsonville recalling 42,000 pounds of pork sausage and authorities conveniently tracking it all to a single location in New York City was a thinly veiled, hilariously savage jab at Whoopi herself, implying she was the source of the contamination.
I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill Maher, who has been the standard bearer for liberalism and in many ways leftism until the woke went bananas in this last decade, but for decades, that's what this guy has represented in America. I want you to note the tone they all talk with him. I want you to look at Sunny Hostin's body language and the way they look at him and everything else, just because he is a lefty who hasn't gone completely bananas.
And Whoopi, the self-appointed sage of daytime, the woman who typically presides over the panel with an air of unshakable wisdom? She reportedly crumbled, faced with Maher's logic and Gutfeld's mockery. Her usual defenses, feigned indifference, dismissive eye rolls, or attempts to talk over critics, proved utterly ineffective. There was no graceful comeback, no smooth pivot. Instead, viewers allegedly witnessed a lot of defensive babbling and a desperate scramble to save face. Whoopi, who had spent years as the queen of TV debates, suddenly found herself on the receiving end of a roast she hadn't prepared for, and her composure visibly cracked. The carefully constructed image of the wise, measured voice of reason shattered, revealing frustration and perhaps even a touch of panic. Her empire was crumbling, and she seemed powerless to stop it.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
This wasn't just a petty TV spat, it was a collision of deeply entrenched ideological worlds. Maher, representing an older, more classically liberal disdain for what he sees as woke overreach, found common cause, however temporary, with Gutfeld, the gleeful general of Fox News' conservative satire army, and Whoopi, clinging to a version of progressive orthodoxy that feels increasingly out of step, became the symbolic target. The clash played out on a public stage, hungry for authenticity and tired of echo chambers. Maher and Gutfeld gave audiences what they craved: a real, unfiltered challenge to a media institution that many feel has become a parody of itself.
Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
In the aftermath, Bill Maher looked pretty good. His credibility among centrists and critics of political correctness soared. He was the liberal willing to roast his own side. Greg Gutfeld, already a ratings powerhouse, saw his influence expand beyond his usual audience, his takedown of Whoopi trending virally. And Whoopi? She's still on The View, still holding court, but her aura of untouchability? Gone. Poof. She's been knocked down a peg. Her credibility as the ultimate voice of reason taken a serious, perhaps irreparable, blow. While she might still be queen of the View Castle, she's no longer the unchallenged ruler of the liberal debate. She's just another celebrity trying to navigate a culture increasingly tired of preachy, out-of-touch pronouncements.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Well, not if you're Whoopi Goldberg, a.k.a. Karen Johnson. Yeah, who knew Whoopi was a Karen? I thought that was only for white people, like Toyota Priuses and skiing.
Ultimately, Whoopi Goldberg learned a valuable lesson. Never, ever underestimate the power of sharp wit and inconvenient truths, especially when wielded by masters of the craft like Bill Maher and Greg Gutfeld. This wasn't just a roast. It was an absolute masterclass in making someone look completely and utterly ridiculous on their own turf. And Whoopi, bless her heart, might never be the same again. The matriarch of The View just got publicly dethroned, and the whole world watched her break down in real, glorious, unscripted time.